Okay, on this video we're going to cover our 1991 Zamboni Model 500 ice resurfacer. It's been a lot of fun having a Zamboni. Everyone gets a kick out of it, and everyone loves the Zamboni. Even Snoopy wanted to drive the Zamboni. So we're going to cover some of the features of it here today, some of the seasonal cleanup that we do, getting it ready for the next season. And it's a 1991, so it's 34 years old. And it's still running good.
Hey, everyone likes my car wash videos more than my other videos. So now my wife won't let me do anything but wash all the vehicles all the time. Please, sign and subscribe, leave some comments, but try to watch some of the other videos. Otherwise I just have to wash equipment all the time.
There are other brands of ice resurfacer, but Zamboni is the gold standard. Everyone refers to it by its brand name of Zamboni when it's kind of like calling a tissue a Kleenex or a copy a Xerox. It is the first and the standard for ice resurfacers. They build a nice product. They stand behind it, just like older John Deere or older Caterpillar. The manufacturer will try to help you out if you're trying to restore their older units. And that sure is nice to see.
Good. Zamboni's like the biggest snow cone machine. It's a 7-foot blade that planes the ice, collects the scrapings with augers sideways, then brings it up with a vertical auger, and then a paddler that throws it into the dump box. And then you go and dump the shavings. But just a really big snow cone machine. And it all runs on hydraulics, so it's pretty darn handy. Hydraulic drive, hydraulic for all the mechanisms, and hydraulic for the lift and lower. This is our team logo for our hockey rink. We have it on a lot of our equipment. So Team Tilly, it happens to be a gecko with a flying hockey puck. All right. Anyway, that's our family logo for Team Tilly with the flying puck and the gecko. We like geckos. So, kids played hockey. I played hockey as a kid, and my parents supported us as hockey. We had a rink when I grew up, we had a rink next to our house and in our neighborhood. And so as my kids grew up, we built a rink, rebuilt a rink at their elementary school and did that out of wood. And then we had opportunity to buy the university rink boards when they came up at auction. And so that was a better deal than wood. So we picked those up, and then we picked up a Zamboni. And if you have one Zamboni, well, then we picked up another Zamboni because, you need a spare. My wife was real fortunate to give up her heated garage space for the second Zamboni. But what do you have two Zambonis for? Well, then we can have Zamboni racing, I said. That's what we need to do. And that's kind of a joke because Zambonis only do 7 miles an hour. Anyway, we had two Zambonis, and we found a good home for the second one to a club here in Alaska. Help their community out. Their other one was from 1976, so they definitely need one. They came and got it and hauled it down behind a pickup truck, which I have a picture of. But anyway, so that's the way it goes. And so now we have one Zamboni, and we don't have any players anymore. They're all off at school. So we're going to have to probably be selling the Zamboni. 1991 Zamboni needs a little attention even once a year. Tend to go through and clean up a lot of the grease goobers. You want to grease it often because the grease displaces the water. So after a session or a day, you grease at least the main points on the ice resurfacer. but you tend to give everything grease all winter long. So go back by and I clean everything up. And right now I'm just going to give it a little bath. That even though it's kind of pitted and rusted or whatever, it still needs a little cleanup and attention. That's what makes them last so long. Have a good day. With the grease and oil, a lot of times dirt just clings to things, so try to give it a good wipe down, wash it. You know, doesn't make it perfect, but kind of catches up on things. Makes it easier to work on, makes it easier to see on things. The propane engine runs pretty darn clean, runs on propane, and I don't see much change in the oil, much at all. So take care of your equipment and it'll keep on running. Iron board pipe. I'm gonna come over there next. Seven-foot high door opening, and the Zamboni fits in it. It sure is handy, but boy, do I have to clean this driveway out in front, because if I have any type of snowpack, an inch or two, then it reduces my clearance here, because I only have about 5 inches between the steering wheel and the garage door. So, but it works. So our highly modified Zamboni is modified to go through a 7-foot garage door. Yes, that's right, a 7-foot garage door. Why? Because it's easier to modify the Zamboni than the garage doors. So the driver has to do a little bit of a limbo, but I cut the exhaust stack off so it clears, and then I removed a shield that they use here for the snow dump box. That there's normally a little cover and it breathes on this side. I just removed the cover because we were that close. We're basically driving from the steering wheel to the garage door is about the width of my fingers. But hey, it gets the mighty Zamboni into the nice warm garage. You don't have to rebuild things. So the other model we had, the hydraulic motor for the vertical auger was placed on top. And so there was no way that would clear the garage. And every time we had to take the hydraulic motor off to go in or out of the garage and then put the motor back on. So that's why we like the older Zamboni. I added 6 quarts of hydraulic fluid, and so took it from low to medium. But you don't want to fill this up because in the winter that hydraulic fluid gets really warm and it expands a whole bunch. It needs room to expand. So you just want to keep it in the middle so you have room for expansion.
Keeps you humble, right?
Little kids' faces just light up when they see the Zamboni. And then when I tell them that I can give them a ride on the Zamboni, oh, you would think that they were going down the parade. Anyway, I took it over to the school, and the school's a few miles away. So sometimes we transport it on a truck, but the first couple times I drove it there and drove it back at like 5 miles an hour, 15 to 20 below. So it took a while. So then we started using the rollback truck. But then I had our son driving it with me on the driveway to get on the rink, and the teachers only saw his little head. So they thought he was out driving the Zamboni, but I was sitting down behind him. So it was pretty funny. We told him, no, he was being supervised. So, gotta have fun. Okay, Zamboni's cleaned up for another year. It's easier to do it in the summer than the winter. Get it washed down, get it greased, and get another year running. Here in Alaska, we put down water in October, and it lasts us, we can skate on it till the second week of April. So take care of your equipment. The Zamboni is like a big skid steer. It's just a big hydraulic pump. It uses hydrostatic drive for the forward and reverse, which is 4-wheel drive. It uses levers here to lift and lower the box and to engage the augers, horizontal and vertical augers. Then it uses hydraulics to dump the box. Every time you rotate this knob, it gives you 1/32 of an inch change on your blade for what you're planing the ice with. And then these levers will put down water on the back towel. Normally the towel is in the down position. I've got it in the transport position right now. That's a little basic about a Zamboni. Underneath here, there's grease points. There's 3 remote grease points that go to further places. Those 3 right back up in here, right here. And that way you can get to them rather than deep inside. And then you get to the augers on either side. You kind of have to crawl around for those. But if you grease the things, they'll last a long time. If not, the bearings will go out, and it's a lot of work to take it apart and fix those. That's a little bit about the Zamboni. This is the water valve, so the operator can turn on and off the water spread behind the Zamboni on the towel. A lot of times Zambonis in rinks use a rewash. So they do a flood and then they suck up water, and that's like to take blood off the ice. But here in Alaska, that's the first thing that freezes on outdoors, and they really don't need it outdoor ice. So that part gets taken off. There's normally a pump over here, and that whole system is taken off because it's just too much stuff, and it's something to freeze when you're out at 20 below or 30 below. So usually 20 below is where you're operating at. So this allows the operator to turn on and off the water. So when they get near the end, they turn off the water, make their turn, and then re-engage the water. That way your corners don't build up and get too flooded. So on a Zamboni, you get extra grease and you get grease on stuff and grease points, but that's okay. It's not a show Zamboni, it's a work Zamboni. And the grease protects the main pivot points. You get a little bit on the paint, oh well, makes it look mean. That's what we want out of a Zamboni. Got to have some character. It got to work for a living. Have a good day.
What does that brush do, dear?
That cleans the boards. As you go around the boards, it sweeps the snow out from right against the boards and gets it out where the Zamboni can work with it. And it has a little bounce hinge, it has a little spring on it, so it pushes up against the boards and rides around to do your finish. Yeah. The other one got so many. Hey, everyone likes my car wash videos more than my other videos. So now my wife won't let me do anything but wash all the vehicles all the time. Please, sign and subscribe, leave some comments, but try to watch some of the other videos. Otherwise I just have to wash equipment all the time. This Zamboni is 33 years old. Take care of your equipment and it'll keep working. So, this is an idler wheel that helps you when going close to the boards with the Zamboni. Kind of bumps it around the corners. And normally they work really good. But this one here gave up a chunk in the really cold weather. So it was probably 25 below, maybe close to 30 below when I was doing some salmon, and that chunk came out. And some of our boards, they're built for indoor use, so they fails a little bit too in the cold. But that's what it is. I mean, you just run it. Run what you brought and see how it holds up to the Mother Nature. 7 pounds more than what they say, but they kind of squat. So Zamboni is 4-wheel drive. It runs studded tires, so it gets traction. They only run about 45 psi in the tires, so they squat a little bit, so you get good traction on the ice. Hydrostatic drive, like I said before. What else is unique about the Zamboni? Oh, if it should ever break down, it's hydrostatic drive. There's a valve you can turn, and that way it disconnects the hydrostatic drive, and then you can roll it or move it if you ever had to. This is the excess grease off the Zamboni. I go around with a screwdriver, and I just grab the big gobs of grease, throw it in there, and we get fresh grease in there. But then you're not building up every year. Kind of takes down some of the mounds and kind of cleans it up. Ready for another season. Remove the grease, make room for new grease. Then you can see it when the excess comes out, and you know that you have enough fresh grease in there. Very simple. Okay, unique thing about Zambonis is this lever. There's a valve that you can turn, and then you can take this, you put a pipe on there, a handle, and you can manually pump it. So then it allows you to lift the resurfacer if you had to, or you could do the dump box. But you can turn the hydraulic valve, and then you can manually do this, so that way it's like a jack, so then you can jack that up, and then you're able to move the Zamboni. Our Zamboni's always been working, but if you had failure, they built that in.
The Zamboni really doesn't get that dirty because you're not driving it around in the summer out in the dirt, dust, or anything like that. In the winter, most all the dirt is frozen and snowed on, so you're really not having much dust at all. So it's pretty easy to keep up with the Zamboni. And
so my daughter, even when she was young, is a great driver. She drives a lot of our equipment. She goes out and drives the Zamboni. She can handle it really well. Lawnmowers, ATVs, vehicles, even with trailers. Does a great job. Even backing up into a parking spot, not a problem. Even without these new backup cameras and stuff, she can do it with mirrors. But anyway, so when she was young, she was driving the Zamboni real early. Great tool. Sure beats doing it by hand. We'll see you on down the road. Here in Alaska, a lot of times we substitute automatic transmission fluid for hydraulic fluid. It's a little thinner. It stays thinner in cold weather. A lot of times we do that for power steering pumps as well. Rather than use power steering fluid, it's a little thicker in the cold. We use ATF. Well, here on the Zamboni, it uses quite a bit. And so I was able to, I have a slight leak. And so it leaks just a little bit every year, not much. About 4 quarts in a year or 2 years. About 4 quarts a year. So I got a deal on some old ATF fluid that'll work just fine for hydraulic fluid. It doesn't have to be fancy automatic transmission stuff, but it'll work in the cold weather. So, and then as I stated, is I always leave room in here because once it heats up, it's amazing how much of this expands. So you try to make sure to have expansion room in your tank. So we parked the Zamboni in a heated garage, but for safety, I don't store propane on the vehicle or in the garage. So every time I take the propane tank off, store it outside. When I go to use the Zamboni, I bring it in, I put it on the Zamboni. There was some accident where one of the ice arenas had problems with their Zamboni and propane leak. Small explosion, and we don't want that to happen. So be on the side of safety and just take the propane off. It doesn't take but a minute or two, and we only use it a few times. Okay, a few maintenance items on a Zamboni. Place the board brush just because it gets a little worn down. This was a cooling fan that had a problem. The previous government tried to fix it with zip ties and it would bind up. Neat thing was, I called Zamboni. They had a whole kit for this. Bolt right on with a smaller electric motor and everything plugged right in the wiring harness. So check with your manufacturers. Boy, a lot of times they're so supportive, and they had the right piece. It was like 4 bolts plugged right in. It was the greatest solution. The exhaust stack need to be shorter to fit through the garage. Nothing like a Sawzall to customize that off a little bit. But that's what it takes. Then this here is that that vent shroud, and the garage is so close that it wouldn't clear this. But hey, 6 bolts later, and it's out of your way. And any respectable Zamboni driver has a replacement spread towel on the back. That way, if I get tore up or need it, I've got one handy. That's it.
Okay, so the Zamboni's been aging really well. It's 34 years old. It's been well maintained. It is a steel construction, so it works really well in our area. The main thing is being sure to grease all the bearing points and grease them promptly, like after using it or after using it for the day. So at least every day, at the end of the day, grease the bearings that are on the rear ice resurfacer or the key points, because those bearings will fail, and if they do fail, then it's a lot of work to tear the thing apart to get to. Some manufacturers come out with aftermarket modifications that put the bearings external to the frame, a little easier to get to, but the best thing is just keep up on the greasing and things will work fine, and that's what I've been doing. The Zamboni runs on this model runs on a Volkswagen industrial propane engine. Fairly straightforward, fairly clean, and it's been working just great. It's somewhat like a forklift or a skid steer, basically an engine with a hydraulic pump, and then everything runs off the hydraulic. But you can see it's pretty clean, pretty straightforward, pretty accessible so long as you get the dump box up. So we're going to take a little walk around and look at some angles on the Zamboni. This 1991 Zamboni Model 500 has 5,600 hours on it. And so that's doing really good. And here's a few pictures, still images of it after I washed it up. And at the end here, I also have some video of one time when I was out resurfacing the ice. But overall, some paint blemishes and gives it a little patina, a little bit of character. It's really not a problem in our area because for that thick of steel, it's going to take decades for that rust to ever be a problem. It's mostly just surface rust. And you're going to have that because Zambonis will operate in a high moisture environment, especially coming out of the dump box. Dump box is in good condition. The paddler throws the snow in through that hole up front, and it stacks inside. Sometimes on the ice boxes, you replace the gasket material. But this one's been doing pretty good. overall, for being 34 years old, it's pretty clean, pretty straight. Got a few wear and weather marks on the paint, but overall, it works pretty good. I'm really happy with how well that engine looks after that many years of service. It's pretty open, pretty accessible with those little doors. The way they put that on there, it's pretty amazing how they did. This is the water holding tank. That's what they use for the rear water. There's another tank used for the wash water, which is no longer used. 2 propane tanks. Here's the hydraulic tank with a sight glass to show you what level you're at. And again, that changes a lot with thermal expansion. That's where the water pump was for the rewash. And in Fairbanks, those are usually taken off for outdoor rinks because they just freeze up. And it's just parts that you don't want to have to maintain because you're not using that feature anyway. Does great. And let's see what else I have coming up here. I always like their logo in the center of the wheel. It's pretty festive. Pretty straightforward. Board brush. Learning how the features work. These older models only had one drive on their auger. So if you ever get anything jammed up in it, like a puck or a lid to a construction bucket that maybe people carried pucks out on the rink to, then it's quite a work, I've heard, to get a wrench on there and have to back it up manually because these older ones don't go backwards. I never had that problem, but the newer ones have a forward and a reverse, so they can back that auger up. It just saves you a little bit of work, but the main thing is walk your rink down first. Make sure there's no pucks, make sure there's no hazards. That's the easiest thing to do. So build good habits. Here I'm showing how tight it is. That fits in the garage very tightly for the height. At least I didn't have to do any modifications, and so that's very attractive, being able to use a 7-foot garage stall for this. So now I'm going to show, here's the 2 Zambonis when we had 2 of them. That was kind of a fun time. And then here's out resurfacing our rink. Our rink is cut into a hill, so you see on the right side it's pretty high, and it was cut there and it was flipped down to the lower side to make this level section on the hill. This is a standard width of 85 feet, and I was out resurfacing, and I just thought this is a good example of Zamboni in use. It's been fun being the Zamboni guy. I want to thank my wife, family, kids, and friends who all supported me while we had this wild ride of owning the Zamboni. Everyone gets a kick out of the story. Everyone loved coming and skating on the ice. So there's nothing like making a good sheet of ice for kids, friends, and family to have fun on. So probably going to be moving this Zamboni along so others can have as much adventure and fun with it as we've had. It was nice for the second Zamboni when we had it. My wife was very patient, letting us park it in the second garage stall for a while. This is it being transported down to Copper Center. This was going through Summit Lake on the Richland Highway. This is Alaska Road Trippers. We'll be seeing you on down the road.